This Ford Puma won Best Compact Car of the Year back in 2021 with a pretty big car publication here in Australia. So that's why I brought it out here to see if it lives up to that claim. I've already tested a few competitors to this car, like the Hyundai Kona and the Kia Stonic, but now it's time to see how this stacks up against those cars and see if it really deserves to come out on top. And another thing, this is the ST-Line version of the Ford Puma, so I want to see if this thing can also live up to having the ST brand badged on this car. Now, before I start this review, make sure you go to productreview.com.au. Over there, you can review your very own car and you can tell other Aussie buyers exactly what it's like to own your car. So pricing for this Puma ST-Line starts from just over $35,000 before on-road costs, and you're actually getting a fair bit of equipment for that price. Now, the only thing that is a bit annoying is that if you want more power, you won't get it because the full Puma ST is not sold here in Australia. And so when you spend the most amount of money possible on a Ford Puma, this is what you're getting. You're getting these LED headlamps and LED daytime running lights. And look, the placement is decent, but they are a bit higher up. So to some, it reminds them of the Nissan Juke. But then moving around, we have a more aggressive body kit here because this is the ST-Line model. So it just looks a little bit more sporty. You also get ST-Line badges up here on the top, and you've also got 18-inch alloy wheels. Now along the side, we have keyless entry and exit. And then if you move all the way towards the back, you're getting a more aggressive rear boot spoiler. And to top it all off, you're getting LED rear tail lamps, and you're also getting a power tailgate, which is pretty good for a car in this class. Now, taking a first glance back here, it doesn't look all that different from its competitors, but then when you take out any luggage in the boot space, you get some pretty cool party tricks with this boot floor. So when you lift it up, you can actually lock it into place thanks to some little clips, and you will reveal a lot more boot space. So much so, I could step inside here and actually almost be hidden. It's quite a lot of space for a small SUV that's based on the same platform as the Ford Fiesta. And then beneath the tiny little plastic cover here, you do have a spare tire. So it's a wildly practical small SUV. Now, in terms of practicality for the back seat, it is usable, but it is very tight for tall adults. I'm not that tall, I'm 5'11", but my feet are jammed up against the seat in front of me behind my driving position, and if I put my head back, it will hit the roof. My feet have plenty of room underneath the seat, which is good, so it means I'd probably just have to ask nicely for the people in front to adjust their seat to give me a tiny bit more room. The seats are pretty comfortable, and I do like the leather back here. We don't have any air vents back here, and we don't have any USB ports, which is a big minus back here because it just makes it less comfortable for long trips. And we don't have a center armrest as well. Now, what I found interesting is that this car comes with two sunroofs. That's right, one for the front occupants and one for the back occupants, which means if you don't want the sun shining on you, you can control your own sunshade back here without affecting the light for the front passengers. Now, the funny thing is, when I put the headrest up, I can't even use it because my head does not go all the way back thanks to this sloping roof line. Now, while those rear seats are kind of tight, here in the front, I have plenty of room. I have a good driving position, I have a telescopic steering wheel, and I also have manually adjusting seats. Now, here's the interesting features. These seats are manually adjustable, but they have a massaging function. You also get plenty of leather. You also get this material that's meant to look like carbon fiber, but it's not that cheap plastic, so I don't really mind it. You get an 8-inch touchscreen here. You have a 12-inch driver's display in front of you. You have single zone climate controls, but you do get a heated windshield. You've also got an automatic dimming rear mirror. You get a wireless phone charger in here. You get paddle shifters on this sportier looking flat bottom steering wheel, which is nice and chunky and feels great in the hand. And you even get a manual handbrake, which doesn't look too cheap, and it feels really nice in the hand. You also get drive modes as well and plenty of driver aids, so this thing is actually looking like a pretty good value proposition. Now, you've also got Bang & Olufsen speakers, but they are just shocking. I don't know if this is because it's an older press car and these speakers might have been blown out, but the audio out of here is just rubbish, to be honest, for a branded speaker system like this. I found my audio to sound really tinny, and I couldn't really adjust it to make it sound any better, and even returning everything back to neutral, it doesn't fix the problem. So yes, keep an eye on that speaker system, make sure you test it out because our test car, it doesn't sound so good. The other thing as well is that this digital driver's display in front of me is great, has plenty of information in front of me, and I do like the customization, especially when it changes depending on which drive mode you go into. Now, the only thing is, it's just a little laggy, which takes away from the experience just a tiny bit. Now, surprisingly, the center storage is actually really deep, and you've also got a sizable glove box as well, which has been pushed back to give the passenger plenty of room. And I also like the fact fact that you can fit large water bottles like this with ease here in the side bins. And it's worth noting that this door feel is unrivaled at this price point. It's nice and hefty, and it feels really nice and premium compared to other cars at this exact price. Now, what's also good news is that this car is actually really safe. It scored a 5 out of 5 in Australia's ANCAP safety rating system. My top 3 safety features here would be the reversing camera, which is very useful, the automatic lane keep assist, which is great for when you're doing long drives, and then also the autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection is great to have, especially if you're driving in the city often. Now, the Ford Puma comes with a 5-year unlimited kilometer warranty, which is standard, but if you want the best warranty at this price point, you have to go buy the Kia Stonic, which comes with a 7-year warranty. And if I had bought this car, I would have already had to make a warranty claim. And that's because our test car came with a pretty big crack here on this trim piece between the windshield and the actual glass roof. And I'm just hoping that's an anomaly and not something that's repetitive if exposed to Australian UV, because it's a bit of a shame to see that on a car that's only got 15,000 kilometers. Now, as for your servicing costs, you can either prepay $897 for 3 years of servicing or $1,516 for 5 years of servicing. And our owners over at productreview.com.au who have bought and lived with the Ford Puma are overwhelmingly happy with their ownership experience, which is a pretty interesting thing to see. The biggest praise came in the form of how this thing drives, the practicality, and the value for money. Now, the only complaint came in the form of Ford's app, which you can download on your phone to connect your car, which had a bunch of issues, and that person found it almost unusable. Now, you're also getting a 1-litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol motor under the bonnet. It's paired to this 7-speed dual clutch automatic, and to be honest, it's actually one of the most surprising motors I've driven all year. Now, this car is easily one of the most dynamic compact SUVs you can buy. Because this is wearing the ST-Line badge, this is designed to be just a little bit more exciting than your average Puma and also your average compact SUV. So the engine is pumping out just over 90 kilowatts and 170 newton meters of torque. Doesn't sound like a lot at all, but consider this. This car weighs just over 1,200 kilos, which is super, super light. And you know, it's a front wheel drive hatchback at the end of the day, so it really is a reasonable amount of power. Add in a lot more cargo and people, then you'll feel like it's a bit underpowered, but for day-to-day driving with 1 to 2 people and even a bit of luggage, it's actually really quite fine. Now, you have some driving modes, and these driving modes include sport, you've also got slippery, you've also got trail, you've got normal, and you have eco. But for this part of the road, I'm here using sport to really show you what's different about this particular compact SUV compared to other ones. Now, this is very comfortable for day-to-day driving. The suspension really doesn't get upset much at all when you're sort of driving around town. It's a little bit bumpy, and what I don't really love is the droning of the gearbox, and the mechanicals in this car can be quite, you know, annoying, especially if you come from a quieter type car. This thing does feel like it's a bit noisier. And then the other thing as well is that you can hear a fair bit of road noise in this car when you're out on the highway. Now, aside from that, it's actually quite a fun little car to sort of drive around these sorts of roads, and you'll actually want to enjoy driving this thing rather than going, I had to buy it because it was cheaper than, you know, a full-size SUV. Taking some of these sharp corners here, you've actually got nice, flat, sort of, body roll. It does roll into corners a bit. Obviously, it needs to do that so it doesn't feel like a complete back destroyer of a ride, but it's quite nice. And also, it's very much reminiscent of the Ford Fiesta, which this is built off of, which is that same platform they share. And the only thing I wish for this car is that they did bring out the full ST version of the Puma here to Australia, but they never did. This is the top of the range model you can buy here in Australia. Now, this amount of power is plenty to play with if you like having a bit of driving fun, and yeah, it's actually quite good, especially on a quite aggressive ascent as this, so it doesn't feel too underpowered until you start to sort of drop back on the gears a little bit, drop it into manual mode, and then you sort of put your foot down and it's not really moving all that quickly. Now, as for the brakes, this thing is super light, so the brakes do work quite well like this in emergency. They do have a bit of a heft to them, so like a slow sort of engagement, and then they start biting pretty quick. So it makes for a comfortable driving experience, and it doesn't make the car feel like it's jerking around like this. And then to top it all off, the fuel economy that I've gotten has been pretty reasonable. We've been seeing figures just under 7 litres combined, and so this car claims just below 6 litres per 100 Ks as a combined figure, so I'd say it's pretty accurate and should be good on fuel for daily driving. Now, do I think that the Ford Puma deserves to be called Best Compact SUV of the Year? Well, yeah, I do. I think this has some of the best build quality, for the most part, for the price. I also really like the features that come at this price as well, and I think this is easily the best driving experience you can have in a car that's meant to be, you know, not so harsh on the budget. It's the most fun to drive, and it also feels like the most luxurious car around this price point. Now, I would like to see improvements to that speaker system and less of seeing any sort of warranty issues like that crack up here. And a slight tweak to that digital driver's display to make it a little bit more responsive would go a long way. And so thank you so much for watching. My name's Cameron, this is Product Review Cars, and I'll see you in the next one.